This Red Sox trade proposal is kind of nuts, but it's got me thinking. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down an absolutely massive trade that was proposed for the Boston Red Sox. We're going to talk about why it honestly would be kind of ridiculous, but also make a ton of sense. And we're going to talk about why the biggest problem with it is the realism here. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Okay, so the proposal we are talking about today comes in from a person on Fansided by the name of Jacob Mounts, and Jacob has the Red Sox acquiring two players from the Arizona Diamondbacks, Ketel Marte and Zach Gallen. Now, this is honestly an incredibly fun trade to talk about because it fills the Red Sox probably two biggest needs in one fell swoop. Taking a look at Zach Gallen here, he had a bit of a down year this season, but even on a down year, it was still a 3.65 ERA with a 3.38 FIP and a 1.15 ERA plus, 15% above league average production. But over the last 3 years, he has been pretty darn close to an ace status, if you ask me, because between 2022 and 2024, he's had a 3.20 ERA with a very similar 3.22 FIP. So he's not getting lucky or unlucky with that ERA number, just a 1.089 whip. So not a ton of traffic on the base pass during his starts, and a 1.31 ERA plus. In that time frame, he was 31% more productive than the average starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. During that time, he also averaged 180 innings per season and almost 6 innings pitched per game at exactly 5.82 innings per start. The Sox would get their frontline guy in this hypothetical deal, and not only would they get their frontline guy, they'd get kind of a bulldog too, right? Zach Gallen is a guy who's going to give you a whole bunch of innings potentially, and not just a whole bunch of innings, but also go really deep into starts. Two things the Red Sox could desperately use coming into 2025. Now, I understand he is a right-handed pitcher, and a lot of people don't want the Red Sox acquiring a right-handed pitcher, but honestly, I just want the best talent on the mound, and if this is the way the Red Sox are going to go about getting it, I think I'm okay with this. Now, the one drawback to Zach Gallen coming to the Boston Red Sox is that this probably wouldn't be a long-term deal. Zach Gallen is scheduled to be a free agent coming out of the 2025 season, and the big wrench in that is that Scott Boras is his current representation, which more than likely means he's not going to be crazy open to an extension. That's not impossible, considering we've seen a couple of players take some extensions with their current teams under a Scott Boras representation. The biggest sort of example of that for the Red Sox would be Xander Bogaerts when he signed his original extension, but I do think that is a bit of a different situation, right? Xander came up with the Red Sox. He loved the Red Sox. He was willing to sign an extension with the Red Sox. I'm not saying Zach Gallen isn't, but he certainly doesn't have that emotional attachment to the Red Sox organization that Xander Bogaerts did have. So more likely than not, this would be a one-year rental, but still, you would be getting a whole lot of potential here to frontline the head of this rotation. I mean, imagining a rotation with Tanner Houck and Zach Gallen as your 1 and 2, probably Zach Gallen is 1, Tanner Houck is 2, I think would be a whole lot of fun and would instantly make the Red Sox rotation much, much better. But the deal gets even sweeter when you include Ketel Marte into this thing, because Ketel Marte also fills a really big need for this Red Sox team. He is coming off an absolutely ridiculous 2025 season. Not only was he an all-star, he won a Silver Slugger, and he came in third place in MVP voting this season with a 292 average, a 372 on base percentage, and a 560 slug with 36 bombs and 23 doubles for a 155 OPS plus. He was 55% better than the average player in Major League Baseball this year based on his OPS number, and honestly, he's been a really solid hitter for a while now. Last year was his 10th season in the league, and during that time, he's hit 280 with a 348 on base percentage and a 467 slug for a 119 OPS plus, 19% above league average. So right off the bat, you're getting a really productive hitter here in Ketel Marte, but for the Red Sox, it makes even more sense when you look at everything else, because not only is he a switch hitter that gives the Red Sox a lot more versatility in their lineup, but he also doesn't strike out a ton. Over his career, he has a strikeout rate of just 16%, which is 6.2% below the major league average. 6.2% doesn't sound like a ton, but when you're talking about 6.2% over 162 games, that is a whole lot less strikeouts for this Red Sox team, which again, we talk about all the time, was their biggest problem on offense last season. The Red Sox struck out more than almost every other team in the entire league. To bring someone in here like this that doesn't strike out a lot and can put up numbers like he put up over the last couple of years or over his career in general would be a whole lot of fun. And to top it off, he also crushes lefties. This year, he absolutely destroyed left-handed hitting with an OPS plus of 199. He was almost 100% better than the average hitter in Major League Baseball against lefties, but over his career, he's been statistically better against lefties as well. 309 average, a 904 OPS, and a 120 OPS plus. What we are talking about here is a player that immediately solves all the issues that the Red Sox are looking to solve with their additions to this team offensively this offseason. Not to mention, he brings versatility to the lineup with the way he hits. He also brings versatility to the team in general with how he plays defense. Ketel Marte has spent time at second base, at shortstop, and center field throughout his career. Plus, he's got a couple of games at third base. I would assume most likely in this scenario, what we're assuming here is that Ketel Marte ends up as your everyday second baseman, just simply because that's where he's the best defensively. But having that sort of extra, hey, we want to fit you at shortstop. We want to fit you, hey, maybe in left field, right? You played a little bit of center field. Left field shouldn't be all that difficult for you to pick up. That possibility is there for them as well. And I think that just sort of adds another layer to this cake. And on top of that, I keep saying on top of that because there's just more I really like about Ketel Marte to the Red Sox. He's also under contract for a pretty decent amount of time. He's under contract at least until 2027, and he has a player option for 2028. So the Red Sox not only have him for control for at least 3 more seasons, but they also could have the potential to have him under control for 4 seasons. Yes, that would put him into his age 34 season, but still, it looks like he's getting better, not regressing going into his 30s. I don't think that's really a massive problem, and it gives the Red Sox a lot of control over a guy that I think works really well for this Red Sox team. So if you look at it on paper, it makes a lot of sense why these two would be connected to the Boston Red Sox in a fan proposal. It's because it's a ton of fun to talk about. In one move, the Red Sox could get a frontline starter and the bat that they are missing currently in this lineup. The problem with this trade, what the Red Sox would have to give up, and the realism behind it. So Jacob, in his trade proposal, has the Red Sox giving up Wilyer Abreu, Marcelo Meyer, and Kyle Teel to get this deal done. Yikes, right? That is immediately, for Red Sox fans, make you go, whoa, wait a second. That is a massive package. But to be honest with you, that's probably what it's going to take to get a deal like this done. I threw it into baseball trade values just to take a look at what the overall value of these guys would match up to look like, and it's actually pretty similar. I think if you're talking about what would have to be in a package to get specifically Marte Pride from the Arizona Diamondbacks, it would have to be something like this. There is a slight overpay for the Red Sox, but again, I think you're going to have to absolutely wow the Arizona Diamondbacks for them to even consider this. This is just a massive, massive haul. It's a lot of value being traded between these two teams. I mean, just for the Red Sox alone, you're talking about giving up their best rookie bat. You're talking about giving up a top 10 prospect in Major League Baseball. And you're talking about giving up a catcher, which is a rare position to begin with, and a top 25 prospect in baseball. That is a whole lot of value coming from the Boston Red Sox. And immediately I go into, okay, is this something that could realistically happen? And I think I run into a few roadblocks. First roadblock I run into is specifically from the Arizona Diamondbacks side of things. One, Ketel Marte is one of the faces of their franchise. Now, it's kind of weird saying the face of the Arizona Diamondbacks, but it's true. I think Ketel Marte is right up there. Corbin Carroll, I think, is right up there. Zach Gallen himself is right up there. So immediately, they're probably not going to be too keen on trading him. But looking at this specific package, Wilyer Abreu, to me, doesn't make a ton of sense in this deal. Mostly because the Arizona Diamondbacks have a whole lot of young outfield talent right now that is scheduled to be around what Wilyer Abreu's potential could be. Now, whether or not they reach it versus whether or not Wilyer reaches it is a different story, but I'm curious as to how highly Wilyer Abreu is valued by the Arizona Diamondbacks compared to some of the other teams in the league, just strictly based on need. Then you talk about Kyle Teel. Well, the Arizona Diamondbacks have a fairly solid catcher right now. Behind the dish, is there room for Kyle Teel to really make a true impact on this team? Marcelo, I think, is sort of the biggest piece in this puzzle. I think that is somebody the Arizona Diamondbacks would be interested in. But again, are they even going to pick up the phone for this call? The Arizona Diamondbacks were a win away from making the postseason this year. The only reason they lost is because their head-to-head matchups weren't exactly fantastic. And the year before that, they were in the World Series, right? This doesn't feel like a team that should be totally breaking down and retooling, maybe not a full rebuild, but this would certainly be admitting to retooling and probably not competing in 2025. Is that something they are willing to do, especially after the last two seasons? I honestly don't think so. So I'm not entirely convinced that this would be a realistic trade. And I also don't think this would be an entirely realistic trade for the Red Sox. Would this make sense on some level? I think absolutely, right? I think you make this deal and you are a legitimate contender in not only the AL East, but the AL in general to make, at the bare minimum, I think the postseason with Zach Gallen and Ketel Marte. But at the same time, too, it really doesn't feel like while the Red Sox want to be aggressive, that they're going to be this aggressive on the trade market. This would be three of your biggest pieces possible in your farm system to get this deal done. And I think the specific thing that really gives me hesitation if I'm the Boston Red Sox is the fact that Zach Gallen is essentially a rental, right? There is an off chance that he'd be willing to sign an extension, but more likely than not, this is a one-year deal. So in my opinion, if the Red Sox were to make this move, they either would have to win the World Series in 2025 to make it worth it, or they would have to extend Zach Gallen to make it worth it and be competitive for the next few years. Because essentially what you're talking about here is if you don't do either of those things and you end up losing Zach Gallen on the free agent market after 2026, you've traded Wilyer Abreu, Marcelo Meyer, and Kyle Teel for Ketel Marte. Ketel's a fantastic player and would do a lot for the Red Sox. I don't think he's worth your best rookie, a top 10 prospect and a top 25 prospect in Major League Baseball, right? To me, what ultimately breaks this trade down on the Red Sox side of things has to be this Zach Gallen conversation. If they are comfortable with this, I think it'd be a lot of fun to talk about. I honestly don't think either team does this, to be honest with you. So ultimately, taking a look at this trade, while it is a really fun conversation, while it is something that would be a monster deal for both sides, and I think ultimately would work out to some degree for both sides here, I'm not entirely sure if we could put this into the bucket of realistic targets for the Red Sox this offseason. I just don't see either team. I don't see the Diamondbacks willing to give up Ketel Marte to begin with unless they're absolutely blown away. I could see them trading Zach Gallen, but again, from the Red Sox point of view, is this package worth 1 year of Gallen and 4 years of Ketel Marte? In my opinion, probably not. So ultimately, I don't think this deal gets done. But again, it's a lot of fun to talk about. And you know what? The offseason is the time to have these fun conversations. So I still think it was worth the conversation today, but that's just my opinion. So let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys think? What do you think about this deal? Do you think it's any sort of realistic for the Boston Red Sox? And if you were the Sox, is this something you would be interested in doing? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Don't forget, if you want to listen instead of watch these episodes, all you got to do is head over to your favorite podcasting app and look up Red Seat Radio. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the Red Seats.